Yeah, I always have a hard time picking what I want to talk about in these bold predictions. I feel like I want to go big, but you don't want to be absolutely berated in the comments. Um, I put that aside to this time and said, I'll go for it all. I'll go for a Stanley Cup
Oh,
prediction.
wow.
And before I say this, if you're going to say, oh, this team's first in their division, how is this a bold prediction? Picking any team to win the Stanley Cup in January, early January, is a bold prediction.
Sure.
Okay? Thanks. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't know if you guys have noticed the background. The listeners haven't noticed the background, but I've got green lights behind me right now because I'm going to say that the Dallas Stars are going to win the Stanley Cup in 2023.
Wow.
It feels bold enough for me. Some of the staff at the Athletic partly agrees with me in that 27% of them have them going to the finals, but they have them going to the finals as the runner-up to the Stanley Cup. But I'll take that as a win. I've got a couple of reasons for you here just to spout off some stats and whatnot. I will say that 70% of this is a gut feeling, and 30% is based off the stats. First one I wrote down is goals, goals, goals. They're third in goals per game, seventh in goals percentage. They're second in the league in power play percentage, so they can score even strength. But the power play, don't take a penalty against them, which we've seen in the playoffs. When teams start taking penalties, which there seems to be a lot of, they get burnt. And you will get burnt by the Dallas Stars. Second one is goaltending. Seventh best save percentage in the league, sixth in goals against average, and fourth in the penalty kill. I put penalty kill here because your goalie is supposed to be your best penalty killer. And Jake Ottinger has been lights out, and somehow Scott Wedgwood has been just as good. So I'll put a little like a little asterisk on this one. If Ottinger can stay healthy, the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup.
I think that's a fair caveat to place.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, that's most teams. Yeah. But the next thing I have is size. They're not the biggest team in the league like they used to be, and I think that actually might help them because they have some more speed going around. The eighth tallest team in the NHL and the fourth heaviest team in the NHL per averages. Why I want to bring this up is a stat that I found interesting and one that people don't really think about. They always say teams need to be physical in the playoffs. Well, I think teams need to be able to be hit as well. They need to take that physicality and be successful with it. Currently, they've taken or received 925 hits, which is good for fifth in the league, and yet they're near the very bottom in main games lost due to injury. So this team can take a hit and succeed in doing so. They've taken the fifth most hits and they're first in their division currently. So they're thriving under the pressure. They're thriving under getting to the in the corners and getting hit. And the other kind of direction I was taking this is that they have the fifth highest percentage of goals from rebounds. They get their nose to the net and they're in the crease. They hold their ground and they score a lot of goals there. And that's how you score in the playoffs. You score on the power play and you score in the crease. So that's another thing I had for them. The next one is face-offs, the second best team in the league after the Boston Bruins for percentage. And this team's full of centers. Everyone on this team seems to be able to take a center. Last little point I wanted to put on it was the youth infusion has done wonders for this team. They still have so many guys from that last Stanley Cup Finals in 2019-2020. They've got, Pavelski, he's got, I think, the fifth most experience in the entire league in the playoffs. You got Ben, Sagan, Hintz, Heiskanen, Lindell, all of these guys, Faksa, Gurianov, all of these guys still here. It's a very similar team. They've lost a couple guys, but they've plugged those holes with youth, and it's worked for them. And Pete DeBoer, that's a guy I have to mention here when we're talking about playoffs. He's got a lot of experience, and he's still chasing that cup. He's coached 123 playoff games and 68-55. Took the Devils to the finals in 2012. Took the San Jose Sharks to the finals in 2016. Deep runs with San Jose in 2019 and Vegas in 2020 and 2021. This guy can coach a team, and we've seen him have success in the playoffs, but he's looking for that final stat, that Stanley Cup.
Yeah, wow.
So that's my reasoning, boys.
Well, there's a lot there, Case, and I'm glad that you brought up the 2019-20 season where they made the finals against Tampa Bay, because that's sort of what's been in the back of my mind ever since you brought up Dallas. It's like we didn't really know where that team was going to go after that series. You know, it seemed like they had a down year, and then all of a sudden there's been sort of a resurgence. You know, some of their star players have been pretty damn good, like the guys like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. And then, of course, you know, they're being carried by some of their young players, that 2017 draft class of Robertson, Heiskanen, and Ottinger. So they've got a lot of weapons for sure. Something I wanted to touch on that you mentioned is the fact that they take a lot of hits, right? I think you said they're fifth in the league in hits taken, but they haven't lost many man games. You know what else that means? It clearly means that they're a tough team and they're big and they get to the dirty areas. But you know what else that means? It means they have the puck a lot too. And that's very important, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs as well. Something else you mentioned is the power play. I think last year, power plays per game actually went up in the playoffs because there's always been so much talk about how the whistles go away in the playoffs, but I think it was actually the opposite last year. So that'll be something to watch as well, with a deadly power play like Dallas has. So a lot there. Certainly a bold prediction, taking anybody to win the Stanley Cup at this time. But I mean, all I wanted to ask, Case, is are you willing to throw some money on it?
I will be throwing a future on this because I put my money where my mouth is. I'll be throwing I'll go as high as a $20 bet on the Dallas Stars winning the Cup. I'm sure that will return me just an absolute boatload of money.
Yeah, I wonder what their odds are right now. It's probably like plus 2,500. Maybe not that low. Maybe like plus 1,500 or something or more. So
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. Maybe I'll come back to you by the end of the episode with those.
Yeah, sure. Harp, thoughts?
It was pretty wild, like that 2019 year that St. Louis won the Cup. Like, they were in dead last in January, and I think a guy in St. Louis put some money down, and then at the end of the day ended up winning like 200 or 300K because the odds were just stacked against them at the time. But he put some money down, so that was pretty wild. But look, this is a prediction that I've even thought about myself. This is a good hockey team, and as I've heard Jeff Merrick say before, they kind of did something that we haven't really seen another team do in the NHL, and that is that they kind of did a rebuild on the fly. They turned their core over overnight, it seems like, and those young guys are carrying them. Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin look like they're back, and I'm glad you mentioned Pete DeBoer because he pushes offense and a lot of shots from the point. So, like you mentioned, they're going to be good on rebounds and crashing the net and always in the crease and everything, and puck possession and all of that. They didn't really have that style under Rick Bowness, and I think it's really benefited them because, as we've seen in the playoffs with the Dallas Stars, they've had trouble scoring goals, and they have no problem doing that right now. This is a good team, man, and they're going to be good for a long time with that young core, and they've got guys coming constantly, like just, an embarrassment of riches of prospects and young players. Wyatt Johnston is already in the lineup. Stankoven, who was your player to watch for Canada. So this team is good, and, I was even thinking about today, like, it would be awesome to see, like, a Boston-Dallas final or whatever because of that trade back in the day with Tyler Seguin going to the Dallas Stars. So don't know if they'll actually win, but I could see them making it to the finals for sure, and this is something I've thought about as well. I like it. That's
what the staff at The Athletic actually predicted was 27% chance that it was going to be Dallas and Boston in the final. I think 86% of them had an East team winning the Cup, which seems like I smell some bias going on in there, maybe. But yeah, another thing to think about in the 2019-2020 team is, I don't know if you remember this, but this team was beat up a lot in the playoffs, as in injuries. They had to shuffle this lineup so much. And I mean, if they can stay healthy like they have all year and continue to just battle in the corners and get to the net, like, this team's scary. They played against the Devils a couple weeks ago, and that's kind of where I started this idea. I was watching them play, and I'm like, these guys play playoff hockey all year round, and it seems like Pete DeBoer's team kind of always does. And yeah, watching them and like watching that Mason Marshments out there on the third line, just running guys from behind and getting away with it and scoring as well. Like, this team has a lot of strange depth, and like Gurianov hasn't even taken off yet this year. He's struggled. So I mean, there's a couple guys still waiting to click, and they're in first in the Central currently. So if more guys click and they stay healthy, this team's a weapon.
Yeah, like if you told me
Right,
at the
Chad,
start of
let's-
the year,
Oh, sorry.
Case, if you told me at the start of the year that Dallas was going to be your pick for the cup, I would have been like, what the hell? Like, from, out of where? Left field, But they've looked good this year, and they have all the pieces, really. And this year it just seems like things have been clicking. And like we mentioned, it's not only their young players, but their older, aging core as well. So things are going right for Dallas. They're certainly built for the playoffs. Interesting pick, definitely bold, but I can get behind it. I like it.
At first glance, they're plus 1,500.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. Did I say that? Did I say plus 1,500? I might have. But anyway, I mean, hammer it. Hammer it. Or maybe wait till they lose a few games in a row and then hammer it.